Monica Church, we're back at it. Happy summer.
Yeah, happy summer. One weekend.
Well, two of my kids, actually, it's their last day of school today, and I'm very excited about it. I went on my first road trip with my oldest over the last couple of days, and it was magical. It was everything I hoped the relationship would be with my son. Yeah. Long periods of silence, him on tech a little bit too much, and then us laughing and eating ice cream.
That's what a road trip is.
Yeah,
I remember such great road trips when I was a kid, and tech was different, but it was there. You had books on tape, and you just kind of sat in silence, and you drew. And what is the thing?
Oh, the Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah, Etch-a-Sketch.
Those were genius. The guy from Breaking Bad made a bomb out of those. Oh. Apparently, it was like ice cooler packs and Etch-a-Sketches. There's some chemical in. I don't know. I know
on the show.
On the show.
Oh, okay. Not like Aaron Paul.
No. I don't think he's a very violent guy.
Okay.
Nor do I think he's a chemist in real life. No. In the show. It was a great time, though.
I just talked to my husband. So I lived in your former state
for a period of time. The state that shall not be named.
Yeah.
We should make that bumper sticker. The state that shall not be named.
It's probably already a bumper sticker.
That was my play.
But it was during a period of time, kind of the heyday of TV shows that everybody watched together. It was like there was like a cabal of networks that said, okay, you've got a really popular one, so we'll let you go. So things like Lost and The Sopranos and Dexter and like all these shows. And because I was just not in that world, and I never had a TV when I was living in Southern California. So I missed them all. Like I missed all of them. And we were just talking about it the other day because I didn't have any of those, understandings of
like that cultural stuff.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? I had a very my wife and I had really unique style of employment in that we worked in the evenings, right? So we are SAT tutors, right? College entrance, my entire professional career before the day I moved here. And the unique thing about that, it's not that you're teaching math and grammar. Like, that's great. I love math and grammar. But it's that it's always at night and on the weekends. And so it would be like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and I would go to work until, let's say, 10, right? 10 or midnight, whenever it was. But the point is that you don't want to sit and watch TV at 11 o'clock in the afternoon.
No.
So the time you want to sit and watch TV is like 7 or 8 at night. And I would be working. And then when I would get home, you're exhausted and you just go to bed. So I, very much like you, lost this wide swath of cultural kind of relevance, right? Because it's like, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it that way. I mean, beyond just what I was doing in San Diego, I also worked at night. So there wasn't that kind of relationship with TV. I mean, you don't watch TV during the day.
No, you don't. Like if you turn it on at like 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, yeah, like it's just, I'm like allergic to it. The sun's out. You got to be doing things.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's rainy day behavior.
Yeah. Right. Like I default if I'm like sick, like I watched all of, I didn't see any of the Game of Thrones until pretty much like it was like the first 5 seasons. Yeah. And then I got so I don't get sick often, but when I get sick, I'm like out for like a day or two. And so I watched the whole it was like the first and second season in like 2 days. It was literally 12 because I couldn't get out of bed. So it was like 12 hours. I was like, oh, the first season is rough, but like, man, it picks up. Did you watch Game of Thrones?
So later.
Yeah.
So like in the last few years, I watched it because I missed it. I missed everything.
Great. I also read the books, which were pretty great. Speaking of reading, it's summertime. Do you do like a lot of reading in the summer?
I try.
How do you fill your time?
I do try. So I actually, to like decompress, I end up reading the same books right about this period just to like, like a brain down.
What are your go-to books?
Oh, so embarrassing.
Ender's Game.
It's Twilight. Oh, come on. Like that was my time period,
Oh my God.
And yeah, so I like read all of those again, and I do it every year. Just, I don't even know why. It is so brainless. And it's just easy.
That's so great, though.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
My son got me on, my oldest got me on the Fablehaven series, which is like this fantasy series. And I enjoy fantasy and sci-fi. So the fantasy series, but then there's also a second series because it's like 5 or 6 books, and then the next one is like Dragon Watch. And it's like
I do know those.
Yeah. So I've been trying to read those, but we just moved and I got a lot of work in front of me, so I haven't been reading much.
It is hard. That's the thing. Is I get the what should I be? It's the same reason I can't listen to music and I listen to podcasts.
At like double
obsessively.
speed.
Yes, because it's like, what am I missing? Like I find that if I'm reading for pleasure, there's something in me that says, what could you be doing? What could you be learning? What could you be
exploring,
Yes.
engaging in?
It's hard. It's really hard for me. And so I started the Thorn and Roses, the sci-fi series. And I keep trying to pick it back up because I really enjoyed it. And but it's so hard. It's just so hard for me.
I have a neighbor now that has 3 boys, and he's older, and he's like in his early 50s. He's not older, but early 50s, right? And his boys are grown, and I was chatting with him the other day. He invited me over, which is great because, by the way, I haven't been invited over to anybody's house since I moved here. He was the first person to invite me over. I'm like, oh, I'd love to come over. Thank you, sir. So we go over and they got a pool. And so like my boys are swimming in their pool, having a great, and it's like, it's the exact thing that you would hope for. It's like, this is the best thing ever. I was chatting with him and he was saying that, he's like, hey, I wish I had not worked so hard, when the kids were younger, or I wasn't so, he has an RV. He's like, I'd wash the RV right when we got back from a trip. And in reality, I could have washed the RV a later time. I should have just been hanging out. And I've been thinking about this. It's like, okay, how you're articulating an anxiety with leisure time that I experience like exponentially. I cannot stop. And I was actually on a recent trip with Susan Buxton to Thousand Springs. We were talking about this on the way back. I'm like, I really struggle with this. I struggle with recreation. It's a blind spot in my life, and I get that. I understand it. I'm not wired that way. And I think that's a real problem. And I think it's a problem for a lot of people moving here, like myself, that are the nature of our existence in the former state that shall not be named was predicated on our ability to work to death without regret and without problem, right? It's like, no, you're going to work like 6-7 days a week every day. And like, this is just your life now. And you're going to have your main job and you're going to have a side hustle and you're never going to do anything, in recreation. And that's just it's a terrible way to live. But I have found definitely moving here, it's like, well, you have options for recreation, but are you going to be able to be the type of person who changes your lifestyle and puts away that voice in your head that says like, put the book down and get back to work?
And I think it's a city. It's not just a state that shall not be named. I mean, the rat race happens in large cities.
You think it's a population density?
It's a population density thing.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, because a lot of so my husband lived in Seattle for 15 years before moving back to Idaho, and yeah, it's very similar actually, right? What's going on in Boise, downtown Boise, 2000 Seattle, where you start to see, it's just cranes everywhere and you can't drive, and this industrial kind of like work all the time.
Anxiety pushing.
Yeah,
people.
it's the rat race, and I do think it comes with density. And so you really have to, and I think that Boise's been doing a pretty good job so far, but I hope that we can really see that. I mean, one of the things that Idaho has had the benefit of, especially with states around us, is recognizing the bad practices of other states and not adopting them. And I hope the same goes for the rat race, because I mean, it's my personality. I think it's a little bit of yours. It's definitely Susan Buxton's as well. She just happens to be the director of Parks and Recreation.
How ironic, because she's a monster. Like hearing her stories of the things she's been doing and like how savage and sharp she is. It's like, how are you in charge of like the park?
She's nonstop. She's nonstop. But she probably said, I'd really like to have some recreation in my life, so I'll just be the director of Parks and Recreation.
By the way, we had a great time. We had this idea to get like an old, if anybody has one, like an old RV and wrap it with like a parked and wrecked it thing.
Gosh.
And she was like, that's a great idea. And other people that are like way up in the state government have let me know that's a great idea. You should do that.
Oh, she's our Ron Swanson for sure. I've known that woman a long time. She could be our Idaho Ron Swanson.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah. So like, but taking that into account, because there's a problem with, I was reading an article just recently about the affordability or unaffordability of specifically this area. And it's bonkers. Like, it really is wild how unaffordable. We're like 1 or 2 points below, or 1 or 2 percentage points as far as affordable, whatever the metric is.
Yeah, no.
We're like the third least affordable place in the country.
It's out of control.
That is something that can only be solved by housing, right? We need more real estate, right? Because if you increase the supply, you're going to decrease the cost of things, right? Obviously, we need more jobs, right? Which means we have to attract industry. And like, all of these things come back to, okay, how are you going to attract industry? You got to have a viable workforce. How are you going to have a viable workforce? You got to have robust education. Right. You're not going to get a viable workforce in the middle of a cornfield.
And healthcare. And you have to have safe and livable streets, and you have to have, clean water. And
can I say something real fast?
Yeah.
I don't mean to disparage people that grow corn. All I'm saying is you need a high density of specialized education to make a workforce to attract industry.
Absolutely. And how do you do it? And, but there's also, I think the thing that we can pinpoint all the problems and how you need to maintain a workforce and build more houses but we also need to talk about those that understand and are manipulating the system.
Talk to me about this. What do you mean?
Well, I'm not an expert on it. There are a lot of experts on housing and price fixing and the algorithms that work within the housing market and real estate and, all of these things working together. I'm just saying we need to, do you remember when the water crisis, like Cadillac Desert?
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. And then it was like, hey, you know what? Everyone should turn off the water when they brush their teeth to save water. And we made it about the individual. And we're like, if you just do better, it'll be better for the earth. But what we didn't talk about was the massive amounts of water that are being used in industry and on all these other things that could be used differently.
Because I think it's 92% of the water consumption in the state that shall not be named goes directly to industry and agriculture.
Right. But
and then they're killing the 8% where people are like, I have no more lawn. It's literally a rock garden.
And like, I'm pulling out all my plugs at night, and I'm turning down my water heater when I go out of town, and they make it about individuals. And so I'm saying the same thing is happening in the housing. It's like, you put forward these little fixes and you say, well, we need this and this and this, but you don't look at the bigger picture. Like, what is industry? What are individuals doing that are making it difficult or making it more expensive? And cui bono was always something I wrote on my whiteboard. Like the first day of class, I taught, my hair just fell out. I taught comparative government and U.S. government. And I always said, this is the one thing that you have to think about every time we talk about something. Cui bono, who benefits? Because if you start there and move backwards, you'll figure out why policy is the way it is, why, systems are the way they are. And I think in the housing crisis that we're having in Boise, in the West, everywhere, we're doing turn the water off when you brush your teeth, and that's going to save us.
How do you, okay. I've actually been very attentive to housing my entire adult life. And there are places like, say, Berkeley, that have gone to great lengths to attempt to have the local government, right, the city government of Berkeley, manipulate and fix the housing problem. And none of it has worked, right? Because you have, draconian rent control that actually produces really bad exacerbated rents. And, again, it's a complex thing. But for instance, here's one. Say you're renting a house for like $2,000, okay, and it's rent controlled, but it should be $2,500.
Right.
Okay. First off, it's bad for you and the landlord because you're getting paid $500 a month to live there. And because of that, you will tolerate things that you wouldn't tolerate otherwise if you were paying market rent. Because you'd be like, hey, I'm paying $2,500. This isn't fixed or this isn't right. I could just move somewhere else. So you as a consumer, you tolerate worse things. You also are getting paid to stay there, right, by the government. The landlord is disinclined to fix anything because he knows that, you're not, like, he's losing money in rent, right? Essentially, like all these different things. And people will stop moving because they don't want to lose that $500 delta.
That's an example of price fixing gone awry. But you could look at the other side where you've got, capitalism gone awry in Kensington, which is formerly North Berkeley. They created their own.
Sure. I lived in Kensington.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Kensington, now Boise is creeping up. They're at like 400% of market value, and that's not because of rent controls. That's not because of government influence. That's because the market and realtors and have made this location, whether truthfully or not,
hyper desirable.
The place to be.
But it's also a production. It's a product of the local ordinances. If you doubled the number of houses in Kensington, you would have a decrease in value. Okay, that's just the way it goes because you'd have more supply for people to purchase. And what happens is, especially in places like that, when you get the NIMBY, like not in my backyard, and that's predominantly like homeowners, right? Or you get individuals who criticize the creation of apartments and alternates to like, the quarter acre, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. If it's like everything has to be 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We can't have any apartments. We can't have any high rise. We can't have, you're 18, you got to move into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. You're 22, just moving out of college or graduating from college, you got to move into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. You're like 30, or my friend around the corner, he gets a divorce. You got to move into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Like you don't have any other option. Okay, great. Well, that's going to be a huge problem for housing supply. We need step up, right? Like the place I live in Kensington was literally a studio apartment made out of somebody's rear, 2-car garage.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was happy to be there.
Well, in Boise, a couple of years now, but for a long time, those, ADUs and other things were not allowed. And that's kind of one of the, first fixes was to allow opportunities for, for property owners to invite other, step up individuals or elderly folks, their, parents, grandparents to move in. So yes. And Kensington's an interesting, we could actually look at Kensington for a lot of different stories. That doesn't really have a lot of place to grow. And Boise also really doesn't, but
you can grow up. You can grow density in Boise,
right? But people lose their minds.
This is my point. It's not bastardized capitalism. It's the reverse. It's the death grip of people that exist here currently that don't want it to change, but people are moving here. Now, look, I don't want an apartment complex in my backyard either. Like I can absolutely say my sentiment is part of the problem, but you're not going to stop people from moving here. And in the absence of viable housing alternatives, then you have the couple that splits up and whoever's moving out of the house has to take one of the 3-bedroom, 2-baths that somebody moving here would take. And now it just raises the price on everything. If you had an apartment complex or alternate density that just like, okay, we split up. I'm going to get an apartment around the corner. Like we're going to alternate. We'll split the kids. Terrible example. But like people get divorced, or like, or young people graduate from college and they want to stay here because they got an internship at like St. Luke's. Okay, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Can we just stop with the 3-bedroom, 2-baths? Like, can I just get an apartment for the 22-year-old?
I do think it is changing. So something interesting that, I was having deep thoughts on our road trip home. We went camping on the Oregon side of Hell's Canyon. And so we drove back through Cambridge and, that area, and then down the interstate to Boise.
Is Cambridge where the Rock House ice cream place is?
I don't know.
I went there yesterday. They had wild huckleberry ice cream.
Why would you be in Cambridge?
I don't know if it was Cambridge.
No.
I was coming
Cambridge
up.
is like,
I was coming north.
No.
Right,
Cambridge, Cambridge is like Brownlee Reservoir, Payette.
Right. I was going through Jordan Valley.
Okay.
Different place.
Keep going. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so we're driving and, I'm thinking, you're looking out the window and you're thinking, well, all of life kind of looks a certain way in that part of the country, Eastern Oregon and that part of Idaho. And I want it to stay that way too. And I'm thinking about the, gentleman that you had on who, the rancher, and what a benefit it is to have land and to have a ranch and all these things. And then you're seeing these kind of apartment complexes that are starting to, pop up along the freeway, and who's moving into those. And it's, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot in Idaho in that in order to make that living, because we can't all be ranchers, right? In order to make that living and to live the leisure life out in an environment where you could read a book and not feel like you are pressured to do the side hustle or the other thing. You do have to make a living. And urban sprawl it's a thing. It's a real thing. And the only way for us to maintain that lifestyle is to make it accessible for individuals to live there and work where the jobs are. And we have been so adverse to public transportation, high-speed, reliable public transportation in this state, and it's to our detriment. And, we can blame Californians and we can blame this and we can blame that. But if we want to maintain the lifestyle, if we want to maintain these open places, if we want people to be able to live the value of just sitting down and enjoying or, walking out their backyard and being in wilderness, then we have to give people an opportunity to get to where the jobs are.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well,
we have Valley Regional Transit. Let's just take it from Nampa to Boise.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. But you're saying we need more of that, and that would produce a lower density. Why?
Well, no, I'm just saying that people could have jobs. People have
so
jobs.
So you're saying the Valley Regional
Boise.
Transit is not running enough to allow people to have jobs?
Well, they're not to be able to come into Boise all the time. I mean, in places like Salt Lake or in places like, San Francisco or in Seattle, like people can't afford to live in the city proper, but that's where they work. And so how are they getting there? Well, we have all these cars, and you've been here long enough to know the inversion and the problems that we have and the traffic, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. These people are still coming into Boise. I mean, and they're moving further and further away. I mean, they're moving all the way out to Payette and to Parma and to Cambridge and still, working in Boise.
Wait, you're saying there are people commuting from Parma?
I have a former student, college graduate. She is commuting from Payette to Boise every day.
Why is she employed in Boise?
Yes, she is employed in Boise, but the boyfriend lives in Payette and is commuting back and forth and back and forth.
Okay, so it's the boyfriend.
Potentially.
I mean, high likely. I'm gonna throw out there that there's a possibility of housing between.
Well, of course there's an opportunity, but the idea is how do we allow people to live out of the city, to live the lives they want, to have the, what did you call it? Your farm?
Oh,
hobby farm. A hobby farm. To have a little bit of land and still have a job that affords all the things that they want to do, the family vacations and the new car if you need it, all these things. Multiple children. I mean, we keep talking about this child crisis that we're having in this country. You have to be able to afford it. You have to feel good. You have to feel happy.
And you think it's the transportation cost is the problem?
We just don't have a reliable, fast transportation from, from Caldwell into Boise. It's just that's going to take you hours every day if you're going on the bus, on the same freeway that everybody else is on, single individual cars.
I guess what I'm not understanding is let's say you made a metro train, from Caldwell directly to Boise.
Well, I'd go all the way, but yeah.
Whatever. The problem is what I'm saying is you create that. I don't understand what problem that's solving, and I don't understand where all this prosperity all of a sudden comes from because you have a train that goes directly from Caldwell to Boise. Right?
I'm saying
what is that?
That a lot of people would like to live outside of the city, right? They'd like 100%. To be able to afford a little more.
Okay.
That they can't afford the 3-bedroom house here, and there aren't a lot of apartments. They would love to move.
Right.
Yeah, they'd love to move, to Caldwell or
Middleton,
to
wherever. Yeah,
Middleton,
okay.
Up and coming.
It's great.
But they still have a job at the university,
at
St. Luke's, at something,
and
they're spending hours a day back and forth, and to the detriment of their leisure time and that's a privilege to be able to do that. There are other people that just simply cannot afford where they once were in the valley. And so they're moving further out. And now they have a lot more needs. You know, they don't have the job that they maybe had. But because it only paid, $50,000, they couldn't stay in the home that they were in.
Sure.
And so now they're picking up these odds and ends. And we hear all the time about rural America, rural Idaho, and we need jobs. We need jobs. We need jobs. Well, there are jobs. There's just not, there's an affordability issue and there's a leisure time issue that happens.
Okay, but the train doesn't solve any of these things. The
Well,
affordability
it provides
doesn't.
an opportunity for people to get to the jobs in the city.
So you're saying the people that live like in Caldwell don't have cars or can't afford the
Oh, they
car?
can. But I mean, who wants to drive? And if we keep going out further and further,
Sure.
like who wants to drive an hour and a half
Sure. So
twice a day?
So take like the train for an hour and a half
Yeah.
twice a day.
Well, it wouldn't be an hour and a half on a train.
Yeah, it would.
No.
Yeah, it is. I know people that took the BART train from like outside from the East Bay into the city. And it
It
takes.
depends on what time of day, for sure,
Sure.
if you've got all those different stops.
Sure.
But that's also time to read a book or to, have leisure. It's
Let me
also
tell
much
you,
better for
It's not. It's not real leisure time on the BART train. You're like,
The
"What?
BART-
You're watching out for
the
the
BART is a
crazies. You're
little
watching out for the
different.
crazies. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
the BART is its own
It always smells like vomit. Like somebody
its
just
own
vomited
individual
right next to you.
situation.
It's its own beast. It's its own beast.
I would
So
really
you just
like,
feel like that public transportation would help people be able to have more property farther away and then recapture at least a portion of the would-be commuting time into the city and back. And you think that would be a great thing.
well, it also would provide job opportunities. There's a lot of people that probably would make more money and would have more opportunity and would be, accessible to the industries in Boise that can't because they live, so far away and aren't going to make the, hour-long commute.
Here's the thing, though. We could test run all of this. Like, let's say, what's a big employer in Boise that's like, hey, if only I could connect with the people in Caldwell and Nampa. Let's say it's
Caldwell Nampa is close enough. I mean, and
Okay.
people have been making that commute forever. I'm saying like even further. When I was driving through, I was thinking, there probably is, issue of affordability or, just life is difficult. And how do you make ends meet because there aren't jobs in these areas? And we hear a lot about, well, we got to bring jobs to these rural communities. And I'm just not sure what those jobs are. And we're all trying to figure that out. What are we going to do? So we ask them to either give up on the dream of jobs coming to them. Or we provide an opportunity for them to go to the jobs.
Well, what I'm saying is, let's take Micron. Let's just run this through. Micron could be like, hey, we have some workforce in Parma. I don't know, wherever you want, pay at Parma. They're like, we need those people here. Okay. Now this is a unique employer because like there aren't that many employers who are like, yeah, I really need people from Parma and, pay it. Let's just say that there's a collection.
But just
though.
people.
Yeah. Well, we need people,
Yeah.
right? And anyway, and
A workforce at a certain income level.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we need these bodies. There are enough people that want to work for my company. They could, make like a bus, like a commuter, like their own individual commuter bus and just troubleshoot this. It's like, okay, well, it's going to cost us $50,000 to, lease the bus, and it's going to cost us $50,000 for a driver. And so it's $100,000, but we'll get 30 great employees from this area and we'll just cart them back and forth. So that's one. So the company could do it themselves. The other option is you just organize within the company. It's like, hey, we have a ride share where like, people organize their own carpooling. I'm just thinking like the hassle or the inflexibility of creating metropolitan transit all the way out to the country and then back. It's like, that's a crazy thing. Not crazy, but it's a huge project. It's a crazy big project. Whereas if this was really a problem, I feel like we could solve this at a much, much lower level and much more flexible level that we're like, hey, we got a bus system going.
Like, it's not Micron that's looking for it. I mean, we are already seeing the issues with service industry folks not being able to afford to live in the city.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is so many jobs and so many individuals who are priced out of
the geographic area where the jobs are, they're priced out of that.
Yes. And so they keep moving further and further out. And
then eventually they tolerate a job that's doesn't pay as much. And
right. Or they, they just get burnt out or, I mean, the end run effect is unhappy people living in an environment that they feel left behind and that they don't deserve the same life experiences, the same leisure time, the same opportunity. I was listening to that interview you did again with the gentleman that owns the ranch, and thinking about the way that he talked about cows. And he kept saying, there's a misconception, and for a cow to produce, it needs to be happy and it needs to be fed. And so it's happy and it's fed, and you have to take care of that cow because, in order for it to produce, it has to have these things. It has to have sustenance, and it has to have the ability to move. If it's stressed, it doesn't produce. Right. And then it's no good. Well, the same thing is true about humans. If humans are not fed, if humans are not taken care of, can we just treat human beings a little like the gentleman talking about the cattle? And we say it doesn't matter if it's Christmas morning, we were going to feed and make sure that the entities that need to produce, because we know that in order for production to be valued, in order for production to be at its highest, at its most effective, for whatever reason, that it has to be fed and it has to have space to roam, and it has to be a fair exchange. So
I'm going to trade you your time, and you're going to and I'm going to give you money. You're going to give me your time and your expertise, and I'm going to give you money and a tolerable experience.
So we should treat human beings the same way.
Monica, who's we?
I'm just saying that, society, that we should.
I think we are engage in this honest exchange all the time, right? People have the capacity to say, I do not agree to these terms. And they have the ability to do that. And if I was applying for a job, which I've never done and I don't know how to do, if I was applying for a job, I would have to weigh okay, what are they going to trade me? And I will give them this, and they're going to give me this. I don't accept that. But if you add on this other thing, I'll say yes.
But that's a high level of.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody has the ability to say
that
I'm going to negotiate with an employer because my skill set is so exceptional.
No. And by the way, I'm not good at negotiating. I told this to a handyman the other day. He wanted to charge me oh my God, it was ridiculous. So I'm a big handy guy, right?
And now you have tools.
Yeah. And I got my tools back, which is fantastic. But it's water heaters. Water heaters to me are the most, I don't understand, because a water heater, you get a Bradford white water heater from Consolidated Supply for $850. Get another, gas line hose, get some tape, no problem. Whatever, you're in at $900. All right, no problem at all. $900. You want to get a water heater installed? It's $2,500.
Yeah.
I installed it in 45 minutes. You drain the old one, let the pressure, make sure you turn off the water. Pressure relief valve, let the water drain out, haul that bad. Oh, they're heavy and they're such a pain.
Have you ever seen one split in two?
No. I've never seen the guts.
All the the calcification and stuff that happens inside there.
Never seen it. I'd like to see it. My point is that this guy quoted me this, money. I was like, no. I'm just not going to do it. And no shade on you. You should be paid what you think you are worth. 100%. I just cannot afford it. I'm not going to argue with you about it and try to get you to accept something else. So my point is I'm not good at negotiating anyway.
No. But I think that's a good point. And that's something. Those moments where you realize that you've entered adulthood? Yes, I know.
Adulting.
Right, adulthood, but adulthood with a lot of privilege in that now I can make decisions based on, what is an hour of my time worth? And I can decide if I'm going to do it myself because I know I can, or if I'm going to hire somebody else to do it because I'm just...
I don't have the skill set,
I don't want to learn that, and to do it would,
too much.
Need 12 hours and
too much.
And I roughly know what, 12 hours of my time is. But not everybody has that. I mean, not everybody has the ability to consider themselves a value add in a situation. And so back to my, I should probably not relate humans to cows, but
look, happy mammals are going to produce better things. Did you ever read Lonesome Dove?
No.
Okay.
Wasn't it a show?
It was a show, but it was
an 80s show.
Incredible book.
Okay.
It was an incredible book.
My mom watched it.
I did not watch the show. I just read the book, which I greatly, I loved that book. So essentially the snippet of it is that you have these two guys that used to be Texas Rangers that essentially, quote, civilized Texas, right? Protected the, white settlers from the Native American tribes. I think it was like the Apaches. And that was the whole purpose of the Texas Rangers. But once that had been essentially conclusively done, here were these two guys, like the peak of their skill sets, that had no value proposition for the world, because they're like, wait, I only know how to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where else is this needed? And they're like, oh no, we don't need you anymore, which is an experience that I went through as an adult, which was incredibly painful, which is like, wait, I know how to get kids really, really good at this test. That's all I've ever done. They're like, I know, but we don't need you anymore. I'm like, what? So the point is that it's this funny thing. They go into cattle ranching. And they're very bad at it. And they're in this like area of Texas that's super dry, and their cows are, their cattle's all mangy and like skinny and stuff. And then they go across the border to Mexico and like steal some of their cows. They had this like ongoing feud with the cattle ranchers down in Mexico, and those cows were like all mangy and sinewy. And like, so again, it's like you have to get, people are going to produce better if they're getting sleep, right? If they're not obsessed with online pornography, if they're not, stuck on social media, if they're not, drinking, like drugs, alcohol, porn, like all these things produce worse human beings. And then those human beings produce less, they're far less efficient and far less effective at a voluntary exchange of goods and services. Like they're just not going to produce. It's going to take them too long. They're going to create a substandard product. They're just whatever. Yeah.
So my point with the public transport is that if we value human beings and the labor that they provide a city that is growing, and the market is such that it, for a million different reasons, of which the solution is not necessarily part of the conversation, then getting people to those jobs should be a fundamental priority.
Then why isn't Valley Regional Transit just absolutely overflowing every day?
Well, so it's a cultural thing, and
so it's not access to transportation. There's a cultural problem.
There's also, I mean,
or at least
we don't have the ability to have local, option tax. Like we don't allow for our cities and our municipalities to work together and to tax the people
aside from the money,
to bring transportation.
No. Aside from that, we have transportation routes. Why aren't they overflowing with people?
Well, and I totally agree. I recently did one of those parent focus groups that the city is engaging in as a parent, not as anybody else. And one of the things we talked about was, public transportation. How do we encourage our young children to ride the bus? And how could the city maybe make it a cool thing? Like, who could be riding the bus and do, social media things to show how cool it is to get, to these different places? Because it's the chicken and egg situation.
You got to market it as young person freedom.
Yes, you do.
It's got to be freedom.
Yeah,
freedom to ride.
Right.
Freedom to ride with my bus pass.
There are so many more young people that are not driving because they just don't like the whole thing. I mean, it's stressful. It's, the parking, all of it. They just don't want to do it. They just don't want to do it. And they're waiting and waiting, waiting. So how are they getting places?
Can I show you a quick video? I did not know that we were going to be talking about this today, and I just really want to show you something that
I was out of town before my family met me to go camping, and my daughter sent me a picture of a parking place that said, I parked, with 30 exclamation points, and then a picture of my husband, her father, just like he looked. I couldn't tell if he was smiling or
like wiping.
That was the most stressful thing he'd ever been through in his entire life.
Then you get a text from him. We're going to the body shop next week.
Yeah, probably.
Look at this. I'm terrible. This is the problem.
I know, but how we've got to change, because that doesn't help. I mean, that says, I know that's not you, but that says, nobody wants to do it. And that's right, because nobody's doing it. So how do you engage
utility? I think people are very, I'm very much a utilitarian. philosophically, I think people maximize benefit and minimize pain with pretty much every single decision. And I'm also not somebody who clearly worries about their appearance, who clearly like worries. I am all pragmatic. So if you're telling me that, hey, there's a better option for you to do something, I'm not going to not do it because other people aren't doing it. I don't care. So what I'm saying is I don't understand. If there's so much value in the public transit system, then I would assume that people being rational actors, to the degree we could argue they're rational actors, would consume or utilize this service more.
Well, in the city, I mean, first and foremost, Idaho still thinks it's a rural state.
Sure.
Right? Like there's still a mentality that that there's only 1 million people in this state, and that Boise still has 88,000 people in it. Like it's still like embedded in reality, whether it's reality or not. So that's an issue. But transport in Boise is a little different. I mean, it's condensed enough that people can, ride their bikes around. They can do other things. I am talking about faraway places, an hour, 2 hours, that the jobs are here, and we know that we need workers, but we need workers in certain industries at a certain price point that they have been, cut out of because of the cost of everything else. So it works in all urban sprawl areas. We just don't have it.
When you say it works, what's it?
Public transportation.
Well, then why
fast,
isn't it
high
working?
Speed. We don't have it.
There's have
no
Valley Regional
bus
Transit
that goes from.
We have Valley Regional Transit. Monica, you're not being fair.
Boise.
We have Valley Regional Transit going to and from our most populated. Nampa is like the third most populated city in the state of Idaho. And when that bus leaves Nampa to come to downtown Boise in the morning, there are like 3 people on it. We have public transit that is not being utilized.
I'm not talking about Nampa.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying.
And
if
Nampa is large enough that
employer,
it actually has quite a bit of employment in it.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, if you're saying, look, we need to essentially marry workers with accessible employment, and there's a problem, there's a disconnect there, right? And we need this public transit to hit these things. And what I'm saying is we have existing public transit routes that are not being utilized for any substantial number of employment. Valley Regional Transit said out of Nampa, they have 4,000 riderships per year. That's 10 a day. Now, those are one-way trips. So that's 5 round trip trips per day. 5 people. Unless you have 10 people that are all taking one-way trips.
Yeah, no, right? I hear what you're saying.
And I'm not criticizing, like, I had Valley Regional Transit on to understand what they're doing, but there's a utilization problem, which means that people rationally are looking at the situation saying, it's not worth it to me to make this action. And I understand a lot of the sentiment that a lot of the public transit people that I've spoken with have is, we need more of it, because if we had more of it, more people would use it. But I hear other people on the other side, they're like, listen, man, if you can't get people to use.
Service industry people do not work 8 to, I think Valley transit goes until like 9 p.m. or something. I mean, what happens to the people that are working in bars? What happens to the people working in restaurants that close at 11? Like, I'm not saying that we need more buses. Well, I would love to see
more transit. Buses is a form of transit.
Right. We just need to be able to give people a reliable option. Well, and you're right. How do I change a culture so that makes sense?
That's the issue. You think it's a cultural thing?
Well, I do think it's part of it. Yes.
Okay.
And every year people complain, it's like the traffic, and then we get the inversion, and everybody says that this is a product of the fact that everybody is driving in this single person car all down the freeway all day long. Even trying to come out to Eagle, today, I was just like, this is who are these people? Does nobody have a job? Like, where's everybody going? Like, what is happening right now? Like, it feels like a big city.
Dude, I had to do that every day during the legislative session. It was a lot.
Well, and legislators complain about it too. They're like, oh, the inversion and the traffic. It's like, well, yes, but let's have some other options. Like, let's really work toward having that tram system that used to, go all the way from southern Idaho.
Do you see that
up.
picture right there? That picture that's in the dark on the corner?
Yes.
That is downtown Eagle when there was a trolley system. If you look at it closer as you're leaving, there are train tracks, and that used to go straight down to downtown Boise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took a train into Boise during the Great Centennial in 1990. But I mean, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago that there was a train to go to McCall. Highway 55. I mean, bless ITD. 20 years later for putting in a light there at the Loman turn. But it's just going to get crazier and crazier. And if the Wilkes brothers are successful and put in all that housing and bring more people into that area, like it was right before pandemic that the train still went out there. And a lot of people used it because that road is very dangerous. And anybody that's been in Idaho long enough has a story of somebody that they know who's died on that road. And, now it's not there. And we're just asking more and more people to, drive that road. And I don't know where and how, we got on transportation or even how to make these things happen.
Can I tell you something really fast?
Yeah.
Man, I was just on a road trip, and I went to a bagel shop to get my son a bagel because I'm gluten-free and he needed breakfast. I try to be a good dad. I'm like, all right, I'll get you some sustenance, kid. And I go to the bagel shop, and I remember growing up in Concord, and there was a Noah's Bagel that came in, and I was like really excited about Noah's Bagel. It's like after swim team, I'm like, go get a bagel. And
is that a shop?
A Noah's Bagel, yeah. So it's like Einstein Bagel.
Oh, okay,
I think it's the same corporation.
Okay.
Anyway, Noah's Bagel, like these great Noah's Bagel.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're saying Nose Bagel, and I'm like,
Noah's. Yeah, never heard of that
bagel.
Whatever. You smell it? Anyway, so Noah's Bagel, they had egg witches, which I thought were like so lit. They were so good. I also remember they had egg bagels that I had never had before, and they had their schmear, SCHEAR, right? Instead of smear. And so they had lox smear, they had strawberry. It's a little too sweet for me now. But when I was a kid, I was like, this is it. And I had a paper route. And so I would go there and I had like $2, right? And I was like, this is it. And I could get this fully loaded bagel. Oh, they had lox. It was really good. Dozen bagels was like $9. I went to get my son a bagel yesterday, and no joke, a dozen bagels was $70, which was a discount because one bagel was $7. So you get 12 for the price of 10.
This is at the same bagel place.
It's not obviously not the same,
right?
But that's the kind of thing where you look at it and you're like, this is the last move in Monopoly.
Yeah.
The last move in Monopoly when one person has all the money and the money is meaningless, and the other four players are literally like, I can't afford. I landed on
and
Baltic.
They won't let you quit.
They
won't let you quit.
Oh, there's no giving up. No. We're going to go until you're bankrupt,
Yeah.
and you're going to mortgage every single one.
Risk does that too.
Risk is brutal. But I thought about that all yesterday because it really got to me. It's like, it got me scared, right? Not like scared for me, fine, whatever. Like my kid's going to be fine. I'm going to take care of my kids, right? But it got me scared for this state because I saw it, and we drove past Tahoe, and I was like, I used to come to Tahoe as a child, like when I was like 10, and like generations past, 2 generations prior to me, I had like a great uncle who had a cabin in Tahoe, and they didn't have apparently the upstairs, they didn't even have windows. They had just screens, and then you'd put wood over the screens in the wintertime.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time it was completely open. Like there was no window, no glass to close, right? And my mom would go up because it was her uncle, and like I never even made it to this cabin, and it was just this like throwaway cabin that somebody had in Tahoe, and that was like 3 generations prior to me. Now, and when I was in college, this gal I was dating showed me this article, and it was like the millionaires are getting pushed out of Tahoe by the billionaires, which is true, right? And then you have the $70 for a dozen bagels, and I came back home, and I was like, how do we not have that happen here? And I don't know how to do that. And it really freaked me out. Like it's been 24 hours of anxiety.
I think we're both anxious about the same thing.
Yes.
I think those two things
Yes.
are, I don't have the solutions, and I'm not a transportation expert, but we're both trying to figure out how the redistribution of wealth happens without the redistribution of wealth with, taxes and the government coming in and making these decisions. How do you make sure that people still have access to a life?
I don't think I'm talking about redistribution of wealth, because redistribution of wealth predisposes the collection of wealth by some central entity. I'm talking about prosperity.
Right. Okay.
I'm talking about like an affordable life. I'm not talking about distributing anything. Yes. Access to life.
Access to life.
Life,
yes.
liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's what I want
but when
for
only
everyone.
a few individuals, corporations,
they
conglomerates,
aggregate everything.
Right. When only a few have access, and you just have the trickle that's allowed in
the rest.
It's
it's
really hard.
Rough.
So I want people, I would love to live in Cambridge. It's the most beautiful place. I absolutely love it. I'm going to go, I would love to own property, and I would love to have Judy Boyle as my neighbor and just live out my days.
Judy Boyle. Who's Judy Boyle?
She's a representative from that area.
You should have said Representative Judy Boyle.
Oh, I just figured who Judy Boyle is. My goodness.
I don't know. I couldn't get her on.
Really?
Yeah.
She's lovely.
She's lovely. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
But
I don't have a skill set necessary for
yet another thing you and I both share, no skill sets.
that is
it hurts because it's true.
It is. Well, I told you, I'm tethered. I'm Percy tethered.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a problem in Sun Valley, right?
Oh, Sun Valley, McCall, everywhere.
And Sun Valley's worse than McCall, right?
Yeah, but McCall is where Sun Valley was.
It's on the way.
Last time I was in Ketchum, this was so crazy. A friend drove up. I was giving a speech at the community library, and she drove up, and she was staying in Haley. And so it's Bellevue, Haley, Ketchum, Sun Valley, and so we drove. She picked me up, and we drove back to her hotel. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, there must be a terrible accident. This is the worst. Oh my gosh, I hope everyone's okay." I'm just
you say a prayer.
The whole thing. I felt so stupid at the end because I know what's going on up there. It was 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon, and it took us. I don't even know how many miles that is. It's not long from Ketchum to Haley, and it took us almost 2 hours. And I've heard, we know what happened, the McCall situation when the road, and it was taking individuals 4 hours because nobody can afford to live in McCall. They'd have to go all the way around because the highway was backed up, or the people that are moving into Idaho Falls because they can't handle the traffic in, Jackson Hole. So it's happening everywhere. So how do we, how do we navigate it? I don't know. I don't have all the answers, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but I do think somewhere in my heart that if there was the ability to get individuals to places where they could make a living without then taking 50% of their annual income in housing that's probably crappy, that maybe leisure time and life could be a little more productive and happy. I just give me a better answer. I don't want to see it happen either. I think that the Idaho legislature, that was one thing that I really recognized that we all kind of shared in common is that, my gosh, we want people to be successful and happy. We want the cow love story. Let's come up with some solutions. Let's come up with some real solutions. And not just turn the water off when you brush your teeth and you're going to save the planet. That just can't be the answer.
Man, when I was 28, I have a dear friend, Voss, who was working for Wells Fargo, and he was just a branch guy. He was going through a JC. He was a savage. He hung in there. I don't know a lot of people who worked full time and went to JCs and then graduated from undergrad. It was hard, and he did it. He was a great guy. He was also this perennial playboy. He moved here when he was 12 from Russia. His sister was 14. Okay. If you learn a new language after 13, you hold on to your accent. But Voss was 12. So he speaks obviously fluent English.
Yeah.
No accent at all. You would never know. But then you hear him on the phone with his mom. You're like, what the hell is he saying? Ira, his sister, has a full Russian accent. They're 2 years apart. It's pretty interesting. And Voss is like suave and he's Russian and, you know, like all the
name is
ladies loved him.
Voss.
His name is Vasily Nikolaev.
I kind of love him already.
Yeah, he's great. When he comes up to visit again, I have to get you two together. He's just great. And again, he's not like all crazy now, but he was in his earlier 20s. My point is he was working at Wells Fargo and he told me, he was like, bro, somebody came into the branch today to just deposit a $50 million check. And he was like one of the Twitter bros. And you had such an aggregation of wealth in the Bay Area that it was all monopoly money. And you're talking like these 25 and 30-year-olds that were deca millionaires and didn't care at all. And then the condo cost $2 million. And they're like, will you take a check? And they wrote the check. And it was that's one thing that exacerbated everything. That it's just like, there's so much money. There's so much money to be made that things just got the spectrum just got broader and broader. And you had like that pyramid, just a few people at the top or a smaller portion just pushing up. And then this gigantic base at the bottom that essentially supported the upper end of people. And like, I'm not a computer, like I don't know computer science. I don't know how the Netflix algorithm works. My brother does. And he was like a chief tech officer. And his financial situation is likely exactly what you would imagine compared to mine. And it's like, here's a tiny collection of people that made ungodly sums of money. And that's truthfully what drove a lot of the problem there. And then you also had a scarcity of supply. Like you didn't have enough housing for everybody.
So do you think it's government's role in that situation, which is happening here as well? You've got wealthy people with money. They have money, and there are, two houses on the market, and there are like tons of bidders locally, and they're really trying, and they've like put everything that they can,
and they keep getting outbid,
and they keep getting outbid by cash offers. And so, is it the government's role to step in and say, okay, well, the market's actually not that. Like this house is actually not worth $1 million?
No, I don't, because the price of a house is what people will pay for it. Well, I think what the government's role is to reduce. Tough. I think the government's role is to reduce the barrier of construction. I think it's government's role to get out of the way and allow capitalism, in large part, to work that with constraints. Right? Like obviously Middleton, I think, passed a really groundbreaking ordinance where they said, hey, look, if our schools are past capacity at a certain point, you cannot build. Or like you can't build another housing development. And CBH Homes.
Cuna's doing that.
Yeah. CBH Homes ponied up 12 acres, connected utilities to the property, like all these things.
That's government regulating industry.
I said to a degree.
Okay.
I said to a degree because you do need to protect, but you also, and by the way, I don't think people trying to buy into that area in Middleton are going to be very happy because there are fewer homes there. There's no winning solution. The government constraining things, even for the betterment of Middleton, will increase slightly the price of houses in Middleton. So you have to have this balance of, we cannot destroy the city. We cannot destroy the services within the city just in the name of capitalism and letting people build as much and wherever they want. That's not a great idea, right? And we have planning and zoning that's like, okay, medium density, high density, low density. Like you have people making constraints, but to the degree possible within those boundaries, you have to allow capitalism to work, because if builders know, they're like, or for instance, ADUs. Okay, great. Let's say you can cut all the red tape with an ADU. I know somebody who did this in their backyard. This guy was like, hey, I want a pool house. I can't afford a pool house, but I know what I can afford. I can afford to build an ADU and rent out that, like I'll put a little fence and I'll rent out that ADU for like 5 or 10 years. It'll pay for itself. And then I'll have a pool house because whoever's renting it will have to leave. Like you allow capitalism to work with constraints, but you allow it to work as freely as possible. And that will allow people to come in and build. Because it's like, hey, if houses are expensive, we can make money on houses. That's what people do.
Right. Okay. So what happens in the meantime? Like what happens now where you've got
where you have
home prices are $500,000
Sure.
and you have all this thriving, bustling city that needs a lot of service industry folks, and you've got a minimum wage at a $7.25. Now people aren't paying $7.25, though there are actually a lot of bars that are paying the $3.25.
Right. And then they get tips and stuff.
Right. But still, at the end of the day, not making the $120,000 necessary to engage in the market. So in this middle run period, what do you do? Like, how do you make the best life possible for individuals who are 110% necessary, have a lot more skill sets than, the two of us do, in making the world go round, but are not valued in the same way as a, doctor or, an engineer or computer scientist or, anyone else, but are necessary to make good coffee.
Right. I think ultimately you have to, one, temper your expectations for equal access to, say, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for everyone. If you're somebody that's working at a minimum wage, you likely will not be able to afford something that's $500,000. But if you're working at minimum wage, you likely couldn't afford something at $250,000, right? So we have different spectrums of housing options for people. And at the holy grail is like you own your house, and that's attainable by a portion of the population. And at the other spectrum, it's like a studio or 1-bedroom apartment, which is a starting housing as people build up their skill sets and value proposition.
There's also a problem of that, again, that culture thing on saying as a society that apartments and the step up system is not only okay, but it's valued.
Right.
You had a representative on, sometime 100%. During the legislature that said, I would never live in an apartment. I don't know anybody that would want to live in an apartment. Maybe Democrats. Yeah. I mean, it's stuck. And it's like, well,
it's a sticky call.
But it's the same thing with like public transport. If you shame, belittle, and say that it's not you don't
have value, you don't have quality, affordable apartments that are going underutilized. That's not true. People see the value proposition of an apartment and they engage in apartments. That's reality.
But
that's why rents are going up.
Good about it.
Whether or not they do, that's a different from Valley Regional Transit, where not only do people, let's say, not feel good about it, but they actually don't even engage in the value proposition. So these are complete,
because cars are accessible.
That's right. This is a different value proposition.
Okay.
Right. So let's not tie the two together. What I am saying is this is a problem with, look, if we want housing prices to come down, we need an abundance of housing. If you doubled the housing, the prices would come down. Everyone knows this.
But then more people just come.
I think a lot of people that are coming, I think one of the problems is the people that are coming can fight at the higher end. Just like you articulated, somebody comes in with cash and steals the house. Not steals, but wins the contract, right? That's a problem that is being exacerbated by people coming outside of this economy, coming into the economy with more money.
No, but what happens if you build, you build right now, today, you say how many people, need housing, and you literally build according to income, everybody's there. So that solves it today. And then tomorrow, there's a whole new
housing, and we need people working 365 days of the year to build housing. There's no point when people coming here stops. Okay, so let's start with that proposition. We've been top three.
That's a hard one to get through a lot of folks' heads.
That may be, but that's reality. Because as Senator Risch told me, he was like, listen, when I was governor, 2008, he was governor for like a year, right? He was like, we were number 3 in the nation with growth. He was like, this has been happening for a long time. Because I kind of feel bad about it. I'm part of the problem. I acknowledge. And he was like, listen, you're not the first. I know. But anyway, okay, I know. Thank you. My point is that Idaho is a beautiful place, and we live in the United States, and we are Americans, and we are moving as we can do, which is a beautiful thing. And I was able to move. You spent some time in my former state that shall not be named, and you moved back here. We moved, right? Jeff Carlson, great guy I had on recently. Yeah. He lived all over the country, and he moved back here. And he was like, this is great. So we have people moving here. We have people returning here. That's not going to stop. Okay, so we have to acknowledge we need builders full steam ahead with constraints so we don't destroy our communities that exist currently, maintain as high quality service as we can. And then after that, baby, build lot line to lot line in certain areas, build half acre in other areas, build, 5 acre per house in other areas, but build as much as we can, preserve as much as we can. And that's the only thing that's going to address the housing. And we will have built-in constraints, obviously, that we need, like things for schools, because we don't want to build a bunch, have people move in, the property values drop down, but the schools stink too. So then the property values plummet, right? Like we need We need balance here. Monica, I did not know we were going to be talking about
I
this
know
today.
this is not even in either one of our kind of like expertise fields.
Well, I'm actually not bad with real estate stuff, but anyway, I'm not great with public transit. But I do know, again, the VRT guy came in and he was a lovely conversation, but he did say, Nampa, we got 10 riderships. That's one-way ridership.
Like, how do you make it sustainable? How do you make it approachable? How do you make it the thing that everybody does? I don't know. And maybe we missed the mark. Like, maybe that's something that has to be part of the whole thing. Like, so in your state, that can't happen. Like San Diego.
Listen, if we had $100,000 jobs that somebody from Nampa could just jump on a bus and they're like, $100,000? Yeah. But people don't want to travel an hour on a bus for a $7.25 job, because they could get a $7.25 an hour job in Nampa. You have to have a value proposition.
Stop comparing Nampa. I'm not talking about Nampa. I'm still talking about like these very rural communities that are struggling.
Fine. Who's traveling an hour and a half?
But the problem is, it's like they need jobs. They need jobs.
Can I tell you something? Listen to me. Two things in particular. One, we have to put a pin in this, because I have listen to me. I'm loving this conversation so desperately. I want to come back and continue having this conversation. Two, I know a state representative who's an engineer. Okay. I can't remember exactly what engineering was, but he moved here for engineering. And last time he got laid off from his job, he decided that he didn't want to go back into the engineering field because he couldn't find a job that matched him. And he does window dressings now. So he sells blinds, and he's got I think a master's in engineering. I will tell you.
Window dressing.
Yes. So
That's
like
a fun term.
Indeed it is. But my point is, we have highly educated people that are highly skilled with decades of experience that are making the rational decision that engaging in that employment is not worth it. They can make more selling blinds, which is true.
That's true. Absolutely. That's true.
And I know a guy, a friend of mine, who makes like 200 selling like blinds and not other stuff. Now, I'm not trying to blow up the blinds industry.
We agree. Both of us agree that we want people to live their most authentic life and have the most leisure so that they can have a road trip with their son.
No, I want people to become blind salesmen so that
How many blinds do we need?
That's my point. It's going to decrease the cost of blinds for you and me, because we're going to be the consumers, and then we're going to have more blind people competing for our business, and they'll pressure the market down.
Yeah,
that's right.
More building.
We need 5 times as many blind salesmen tomorrow, and then they'll make a reasonable living, and we will have affordable blinds. That's what I want.
I kind of need my blinds cleaned.
I don't know anybody for that. I'm still working on the house cleaner. Monica, you're the best. Let's both do some homework and come back and hash this one out again.
Yeah. Big
God
thoughts.
bless it. Thanks for coming in.